slipped off my combat boots and placed them on the doormat. The floor shook like a dog, and water splashed at me. I raised an eyebrow. Wasn't she high class? Shouldn't shouldn't she dry off with a towel rather than... My thoughts trailed off as I figured that I'd just forget about it. My clothes were dripping when I stood by the door like an idiot. She looked at me and smiled. Well, don't just stand there. Come in, come in, she offered, and I took a deep gulp and entered her residence. It was really swanky and high class. Everything seemed to be decor and was probably expensive. My clothes continued to drip water, and I looked down to see that water from my clothes was staining the high quality carpet. Damn, where should I go so that I don't stain the carpet? I asked, not wanting to really make a mess of the place. Follow me. You can have a shower while your clothes dry, she offered and led me to the washroom. It was like the rest of the house, swanky. I nodded with a show of impress. Nice digs, Chief, I commented, and she shot me a confused look. Digs? She asked, and I chuckled as we entered the washroom. There was a washing machine and dryer, a latter which I needed to use, also with the other faculties of a washroom. I don't mean to be rude, but, I trailed it off shyly, and she raised an eyebrow. Well, if I'm gonna take a shower, I would rather not have you watch, I said with a faint smile. Oh, right, of course, she said, and quickly left, closing the door behind her. I let out a small sigh and opened the drying machine. As I undressed, I tossed all the clothes into the machine, then closed the door and started it. I looked around for a towel and soon found a stack of them in the cupboards above the washing machine. They were of top quality, I could tell, and looked like they were more for show than use. I placed a towel over the towel rack and slipped into the shower. Nozzle was a little shorter than I was, but that didn't bother me in the least. The way I figured it was twice. It was better than the garden hose I used at the farm. I played with the taps until the stream of water coming from the shower was hot and steamy. I let out a satisfied sigh of immense pleasure. Good, this felt good. God, this felt good. I hadn't bathed in warm water since a long time. I scrubbed myself down and lathered my body with some frilly smelling body wash that made my nostrils tingle. Suds of soapy water were washed away down the drain as I browsed through Flora's rather large selection of shampoo. Christ, how much shampoo does one broad need anyway? I thought to myself, then remembered how beautiful her mane was. Yeah, on second thought, it would make sense, I told myself as I chose some strawberry-smelling shampoo and soaked some into my hair. I seriously need another haircut. I got one twice a year, but I like to keep my hair on the short side of things. Macintosh usually cut my hair for me. He and I got along fine because he sort of knew my pain. His own sister would piss off at worst times to go do something and leave us to do all the work, so it goes without saying that we saw eye to eye on more than one thing. He also listened to my war stories and understood why sometimes I would wake up hollering like a lunatic. He said that if any pony went through what I went through, then they would probably be worse than I was. As I finished washing my hair, I scratched the back of my head a little. I knew that Flora was in heat, but couldn't she have gotten some pony else? Then again, every pony was scared of what Fancy Pants might do. Just because he had political connections didn't necessarily mean he was scary. I finished my shower and turned off the nozzles. I didn't know how long I had been in the shower, but I had this feeling that it was probably close to 40 minutes. It was just one of those things I had to enjoy while it lasted, like leave time during military service way back in the day. I reached my hand out of the shower and felt around for my towel, but couldn't find it. I poked my head out of the... Oh God, I can tell where this is going. Poked my head out of the shower to look for my towel, but couldn't see it anywhere. I scratched my nose. I could have sworn I had gotten one and left it out. Maybe that sun is getting to me. I thought to myself as I quickly used my hands to wipe off the majority of the water still on my body. I stepped out carefully, my wet feet making footprints of water as I snuck over to the towel cupboard and opened it to get another towel. I was shocked to find it empty. I muttered a quiet curse to myself as I looked around for something to dry myself off with. I spotted a hairdryer on the washing machine and smiled. I grabbed the hairdryer, which conveniently already plugged in, and flicked it on, then began to dry myself off. The humming of the hairdryer filled the room, and I looked at myself in the mirror, only to be surprised when I realized that no fog had accumulated on the mirror. From the steam produced during my shower, I figured that Flora had just bought a fog-proof mirror. The hairdryer was a little less convenient than a towel, but quickly got the job done. I began to dry my hair, and within minutes my hair was dry and fluffy. I gave my hair a little rustic, but it didn't catch on my fingers like it usually did. Instead, my fingers seeped through the hair, and it felt pretty cool. Huh, well, ain't that something? I muttered, then slid my hand down to my bare chest and felt my old scars. Two rather circular scars on top of my chest were from an AK-47, while the jagged line scars on the right side of my chest was from a knife. I gently slid my left hand fingers along my knife scar inside. My back fared no better with several scars from random incidents. At least my face was still pretty. Well, sort of. I leaned forward and looked more intently at my reflection in the mirror. Well, aren't you... Hold on. Well, aren't you just the grandest of fuck-ups? Your squad gets killed, you end up in another world with no way home, treated like an animal, but yet you somehow manage to stay devilishly handsome. You old dog. I chuckled to myself. Cold dog tags around my neck dangled about freely. They were the last thing I had to remind myself who I really was. Without them, I would probably just consider myself an animal, like most of those godforsaken ponies thought I was. But whenever I looked to them, I remember Sergeant Major Smith D. I told myself that Sergeant Major Smith D. I told myself, then rubbed my right shoulder attentively and gave a tired stretch. I turned off the hairdryer and opened the drying machine. As I pulled out my clothes, I realized I hadn't put a fabric softener in, and my clothes clung together. I chuckled as I quickly slipped them on, hearing the static of the fabric as they rubbed together. As I stretched one last time, I caught a whiff of strong odor. I sniffed the air and heard the faintest of moans come from the doorway. I looked and heard a gasp just as a streak of light pink rushed away. I did the math and I chuckled quietly to myself. Well, I'll be damned, smartass, I muttered to myself, then gave my hair one last feel before leaving the washroom. I walked towards the living room, which was near the exit of the house, to see Flora resting on her black leather couch. Well, thank you for your hospitality, man, but I really must be going, I told her as I realized that it was rather late in the evening. She immediately leapt up from the commode. No, please, you must stay. It is still raining, she said hastily as she got off the couch and quickly trotted over to me. She placed a hoof on my shoulder, but as she did, a zap of static electricity zapped her. Ouch! She squeaked as she immediately retracted her hoof. I forgot to put a fabric softener in. I chuckled and she nodded. I know. I was going to tell you, too. She trailed off as she realized that she had just revealed that she had been watching me. She held a hoof up to her lips to silence herself in embarrassment. I chuckled and rested my hand on her shoulder. No worries, but next time do you think you could at least leave me a towel? I laughed and she blushed furiously. I let out a sigh as I realized it was still pissing rain outside, then looked back at her. All right, I'll stay the night, I told her, which brightened her face with delight. Oh, excellent. I don't suppose you're hungry, she asked, and my stomach rumbled in retort. We both paced over to her fancy fridge and began to rummage through it. We quickly managed to make up a rather fine meal, though we both lacked cooking skills, so the baked goods didn't turn out so well. I swallowed the last of the butter tarts and let out a satisfied sigh. You're pretty good. You ever think about career in cooking? I asked, and she laughed with femininity. Oh, don't be so charming. You know as well as I do that the meal was rather horrid. She laughed, and I had to join in. It wasn't close to great, but at the same time it wasn't. It wasn't close to great, but at the same time it wasn't, as she said, horrid. Just saying, I told her as I stood up and paced over to the sink, turning on the taps to get ready to wash the dirty dishes. What are you doing? She asked as she stood up and trotted over to me. Washing the dishes, I told her, but she laughed and tried to pull me away from the sink. Guests do not do chores in our house, she told me, and I laughed. Well, if not me, then who? She raised an eyebrow. You think that I am unable to wash dishes? She asked, and I nodded. Oh, well then, I'll show you, she told me, and we began to wash dishes together. As we fidgeted with the plates to try and best one another, she used her magic to splash a bit of water onto my side. I looked down to the stain. Hey, I just gotten dry, I scowled playfully, and she giggled. Nothing personal, she laughed as she quickly scrubbed another plate clean. I raised a cheeky eyebrow, then cupped a bit of water in my hand to splash her back. She gasped in shock as water dampened her fur. How dare you! She gasped, and I smirked. Nothing personal, I told her. Then she took a larger concentration of water that splashed me back. Soon we began to throw large splashes of water at one another. I was determined to win the fight and quickly grabbed the water nozzle, used to rinse plates and blast her with a constant stream of water. She fell back to the floor crying. My heart sank. I felt terrible, but hadn't she started it? I stopped dousing her and quickly kneeled down beside her as she sobbed. Why? Why? Why would you do that? You ruined my mane. She sobbed and I let out a defeated sigh. I'm sorry, ma'am. I was just playing around. Didn't mean to take it too far. I told her and she stopped sobbing, then began to sniffle. You mean that? She asked and I nodded. She smiled and suddenly a large splash of water from what I presumed to be a soup pot crashed over my head, soaking us both. Oh, you didn't, I muttered and she giggled. Oh, you did, didn't you? I muttered. Then suddenly she pushed up and knocked me body back. She leapt on top of me and quickly pressed her soaking wet lips against mine. Her mane splashed down and splashed against my face with considerable wetness. Right. She was still in heat, I thought to myself. I had to say it with rather nice, but thankfully my mental restraints kicked in. I grabbed hold of her sides and pulled her off me, breaking a kiss. She gasped, You're a nice lady, Flora, but this probably isn't the right thing to do, even if your husband is cheating on you, I told her, and she quickly got hold of herself. Oh, my goddess. I am so sorry, Dale. Forgive me, please, she pleaded, and I smiled, placing a loving hand on her shoulder. Don't mention it, seriously. I chuckled as I stood to my feet and helped her up. I realized that we were soaked and in need of a shower. All right, if you go for a shower, then I'll clean up this mess, I told her, and she nodded and sheepishly trotted away to the bathroom. Christ, that had gotten out of hand fast. But that's what happens when a mare is in heat. Big McIntosh told me about some pretty interesting times that he had when Applejack was in heat. I quickly cleaned up the mess, and soon enough Flora returned from her shower, looking radiantly beautiful. My jaw opened slightly as I gazed upon her beauty. What the hell had gotten into me? It was like I was a 14-year-old kid who had just snuck into a porn shop for the first time. You're beautiful, I stammered, and she giggled and tossed me a towel. You should probably take a shower, she laughed. God, I keep changing my fucking voice. She laughed, and I realized that she was right. I gave her an appreciative nod, then proceeded to the shower. The shower was relatively short, and I quickly got out and dried myself off with a towel. This time the mirror was fogged, so I knew that Flora hadn't been washing. I grabbed my laundry from the dryer and quickly slipped them on. I walked out of the washroom and met Flora in the hallway. Flora offered to let me sleep in her room, but I turned down the offer and instead flopped down on the living room couch. I thanked her one last time before passing out. It had been a long day. I awoke suddenly when loud screams echoed in the house. Oh, God. I sat up almost immediately, not remembering where I was. Soon all came back to me. Oh, yeah, I muttered tiredly to myself and got to see what all the commotion was about. Someone over the source of the scream, which was Flora's room, and knocked. Ah! Oh, come in, please. Come inside, she moaned, and I raised an eyebrow. Did she say come or come? I fearfully opened the bed. Her door, see her lying sprawled out on her bed. A bottle of fine wine was in a bucket of ice cubes, and she was sipping out of a fine glass, using her magic to levitate it. I was, just wondering if you were okay. Oh, God, I really need to get this straight. I was, just wondering if you were okay, I stammered as I noticed a large stain of what I could only perceive to be her fluid stained on the bed sheets between her hind legs. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, Dale. I need your help, she whispered in the most seductive voice I'd ever heard. I gulped shyly. If I was still on Earth and she was a human, I'd immediately be tapping that ass. But my mind told me no. Flora, I just wanted to make sure you were okay, I told her, but she immediately closed the door behind me with her magic and trotted over to me with lust burning in her eyes. Oh, this is not gonna end well.